Hello everyone, I am Durga Saujanya, Assistant Professor from Department of ECE, MLR Institute of Technology. I am going to give the video lecture for the subject Embedded System Design. On this subject, in the third unit, today I am going to give the video lecture on the session Keywords, Data Types, Operators, Conditional Branching Loops. This is our today's session. The overview of this session was in the unit 3rd, the keywords, data types, operators, conditional branching loops. We will discuss the programming concepts of these which are used in embedded C language. While going to the overview of the session, first we will discuss about the summary of previous session. So in the previous session, we have discussed how can we write the basic structure for the embedded C language. So what are the templates we have for writing any program for C language, which is embedded C language. So in the embedded C language, we will start with the hash include stdio.h. So this is in C language. So we have to write this as in our embedded C as register 51.h. So here in embedded C, so we have pre-directives and the variables, data type operators, and we have to use the main, which is used for opening the braces and closing the braces. So we have seen how the embedded C language program template will be there for any program, the common template for any program in embedded C language. And we have seen in the last session the differences between the C language and embedded C language, and what are the applications of both and how can we differentiate them in terms of programming. Here the main difference between the C language and the embedded C language is the C language is a general purpose language, so which can be defined with variables, but here in embedded C language we have to define our program with respect to the processor used in that embedded design. So depending on the processor we have used, we have to consider the registers, the general purpose registers, special function registers, and the memory size, so which are used in that particular processor. So we need to consider all the things. After consideration of all these things, we need to write a particular program for embedded C language. So now we have seen the basic template of the embedded C language. So now we are going to discuss about the keywords, data types, operators, the conditional branching loops and loop. So we will discuss these things in today's session. Let us start our today's session. The first one is keywords. Keywords are nothing but the reserved names used by the C language, just like auto, double, break, else, case, switch, type def, union, unsigned, signed, size of, while, void, float, for, go to, if, default, continue, constant, char, do, enum, int, long, register, return, short, static, struct, volatile. So these are all the keywords which are used in our C language. The same keywords can be used in embedded C language also. Here we have observed that all the keywords must be written in lowercase letters only, and here the keywords which are defined by the programmer will be the same keywords which are used by any programmer. So we don't have any possibility for modifying the words as per our user interaction. So we have to use these keywords as it is. So that means the keywords which are used by embedded C language are fixed. The names of these keywords are fixed, and we have to write these keywords in lowercase letters, and these are used for specific purposes. To specify the variable which have taken under this int should be the integer, to indicate that it is an integer value, and to indicate that it is a float value. So we know that the float which is used in C language, here in embedded C we can write this float as double. In some cases, double can denote the double integer which is of 16 bytes long, or floating point value. So these are defined by double. Here switch and case, these two will be used for different cases. While the condition is satisfied, we need to execute different cases. We have to use this switch and case in loops. Like that, if else are also used in the loops. So like that, the size of can be used for returning the size of memory which is allocated for that particular variable. So like that, each one keyword will have a specific meaning which is used in our embedded C programming, so that we will not have any possibility for changing the keyword names. So we have to use the names as it is in the table, and we have to use the lowercase letters only. Next, data types. There are different types of data types are available in embedded C language. The first one is unsigned char, signed char, unsigned int, signed int, sbit, bit and SFR. So these are the data types which are defined for embedded C language. Here if you observe this char, int, bit, so these are all keywords. Just now we have seen. So these are all the keywords, and to define the range of that keyword, we have used the data type. So that means here, when we go for unsigned char, in unsigned char, the character type is the data type and is the most natural choice. In unsigned char, the char is the data type and it can be unsigned char. So that means it is an 8-bit data type. So it can use the range of 0 to 255 values. So that means from 00 to FF. So we can define 0 to 255 number of characters for an 8-bit data type char. Here the C compilers used the signed char as the default data type, so that for defining as an unsigned char, we need to keep unsigned before the char in the program, and we always use unsigned char in program until unless we don't need to represent the signed numbers for the temperature. Just like for temperature, we know that minus Kelvin and Celsius. So we have the negative temperatures, and we need to represent those values in negative temperatures with characters. So to represent those words, we need to mention that as signed. Otherwise, for any character, if we want to use that character as a data type and as a text for representing for text or strings or characters, so we need to write unsigned char. Next one is signed char. In signed char, it is also an 8-bit data type and it uses the MSB to represent the minus or plus. So it gives the values from minus 128 to plus 128. Here if we have used the minus value in the representation, then we can denote that as signed char. So for representing the negative values also, we need to use the minus 182 to plus 127 characters. We need to use signed char. So here we can understand easily that the unsigned char represents the real numbers, where signed char represents the positive and negative numbers which consists of real numbers, but here we have only the positive numbers only. This is the range of unsigned char and signed char. Next, unsigned int. It is a 16-bit data type, and it also, here also we have unsigned. Unsigned means we have only positive values, that is the value is started from 0 to some value, which is here it is a 16-bit data type. Therefore 2 power 16, which is 65,536. So as it starts from 0, so we have to count 0 also. So therefore from 0 to 65,535. So it is the range of this unsigned integer. So unsigned int represents the variable which is assigned with unsigned int is an integer variable having the range of 0 to 65,535. It takes a value from 0 to 65,535. Any value in between this can be assigned as a variable for this unsigned int. So here the 16-bit variables such as memory addresses. Here the 16-bit data can be used for representing the memory address so that the counter value should be more than 256. Since registers and memory accesses are in 8-bit, the misuse of int variables will result in larger hex file. So we have to take care whether we are using the unsigned int for representing the data for 16-bit data type. So signed int. Signed int is also 16-bit data type, and in this 16 bits, the 15th bit from 0 to 15 is the 16 bits. In this, the 15th bit is the MSB bit and 0 bit is the LSB bit. So this MSB bit represents the negative sign. So that means when we have assigned any variable as signed int, so the value defined for that variable, in that variable the value defined, so in the binary representation the MSB bit of that value will represent that it is a negative number. So if MSB bit is 1, it knows that it is a negative number. If MSB bit is 0, it is a positive number. So here the MSB D15 is used for representing either minus or plus. So we have 15 bits for the magnitude of the number from minus 32,768 to the plus 32,767. This is the range of signed int numbers. Next, the bit. Bit is a data type which allows access single bit of bit addressable memory spaces. So in the bit addressable memory space from 20 to 2FH, we need to access a single bit. So for accessing a single bit, we can use the bit data type. For accessing the byte size special function registers, we can use the SFR. So SFR denotes the special function register. For byte size special function register, we can define those as SFR. Next, these are the different types of data types available in embedded C programming. Char, in this signed character or unsigned character. So here signed char means minus 128 to plus 127. Unsigned char, that is from 0 to plus 255. Again, signed short integer, this is from 8-bit size. Signed short integer is an 8-bit size. Signed integer is a 16-bit size. For 8-bit size, the data range is minus 128 to plus 127. For 16-bit size, the data range is minus 32,768 to plus 32,767. So again, here we have the signed short integer and unsigned short integer. So here signed int and unsigned int. And long int means it has the 32-bit size. So signed long int and unsigned long int. Here these are used for representing the 32-bit data types, 32-bit data with long int. The short int represents it is an 8-bit data, and signed int and unsigned int it represents 16-bit data, and signed long int and unsigned long int. So these represents the 32-bit data. The float is used for representing the floating point number. So it is a 32-bit data. So it can have the range of 3.4 e power minus 38 to 3.4 e power plus 38. Here the double represents the signed floating point number, and long double represents the 80-bit data. The double represents the double of the float, that is 64-bit data. So these are the different types of data types available in embedded C programming. Next, operators. So operators means the operators are the symbols which are used for defining operation executed in that instruction. So here these arithmetic operators are used for performing arithmetic operations on the given variables. Here plus symbol indicates the addition operation. It adds the variables or numbers. Minus symbol represents the subtraction operation. It subtracts the variables or numbers. The star symbol, which is used for indicating the multiplication purpose. So it multiplies the variables or numbers. The slash symbol indicates the division operation, and it divides the variables or numbers, and the percentage symbol represents the remainder after division. So that means when we have given this symbol between two variables, that two variables will be divided and the remainder will be stored in the result variable. So it finds the remainder of a division. And next, logical operators. Logical operators means here ampersand and ampersand, it represents the logical AND operation and it performs the logical AND operation between the two given variables, and the output is true if both operands are true. And this symbol represents the logical OR operation. It performs the logical operation, logical OR operation. The output will be true if any one of the input will be true. So this symbol performs the logical NOT operation. Here it performs negation, which is the complement of the input. So these are the arithmetic operators and logical operators. Next, branching instructions. Here branching instructions means here whenever any interrupt or any subroutine program will be executed in the main program, so we have to call that subroutine program from the main program. So in the main program, if we have to use any function, so let us take some int x, int y, add x comma y. So here we need to define this add x comma y separately as a function. So here add a comma b, here this integer a, integer b, a equal to a plus b. So that means here we have taken two variables and we have to add the two variables and result will be stored in the first variable, and we need to call this function for any two variables which are taken as x and y. So here we need to call this add x comma y. So in this execution, when executing one by one instruction, here when the processor going to execute this instruction, here it will stop the execution at this point and it jumps the execution from here to the function, and the total function will be executed first, and from the return statement it will be come back to the main program. So this process is known as branching. So here there are different types of branching instructions are there. Conditional branching instructions. The conditional branching instructions are nothing but if and else. So first if statement and if and else. So if statement means if any expression given in the if statement, if it is satisfied, then it will execute the code which follows the if. Otherwise it will execute the next code which is skipping by the if code. So here it evaluates the expression first, and if it is true, then it executes the statements given within the open and closing braces of if and continues the execution of statements. And if the condition is not satisfied, then it skips the execution of statements within the curly braces if the expression is false, and it continues the execution of statement following the closing curly brace. So here if the expression is satisfied, it is true, so then the expressions or the statements in between the open and closing braces will be executed, and if the expression is false, then the statements after the closing braces are executed. So this is the branching program execution. And next, if else statement. Here it evaluates the expression first, and if the expression is true, it executes the statements given within the open and closing braces following the if expression, and continue execution of statements following the closing brace of the else block. Executes the statements within the curly brace following the else if the expression is false. So if the expression is true, it executes the statements within the if statement, and if the expression is false, it executes the statements within the else block and continue execution of statements following the closing brace of the else. So this is known as two-way branching. If we have used only if and we have only one way for branching, so either true or false, then it is called one-way branching. Here we have two ways. So if condition is satisfied, if if condition is not satisfied, else. So there are two ways are there for branching. So this is called two-way branching. Next branching instruction is switch case. Switch case statement, it tests the value of the given expression against the list of case values for a matching condition. So if the condition is matched, then if a match is found, it executes the statement following the case. So the value which is matched with that case, that particular case will be executed and breaks from the switch. If no match found, executes the default case. So if any match found in these cases, so that particular case will be executed. And if no match found, it simply escapes from the cases and it executes default case. It is used for multiple branching. And next, conditional operator. Here it is used for assigning a value depending on the expression. So that expression is calculated first, and if it is greater than 0, it evaluates the expression 1 and returns the result of operation. Else, that means if the result is not greater than 0, then it evaluates the expression 2 and returns it as a result. The return value is assigned to some variable. So it is a combination of if-else with assignment statement. So here first we have to assign the operator, conditional operator greater than. So if this condition is satisfied, then it executes the expression 1. If the condition is not satisfied, it executes the expression in the else statement and it can return the value as a result. This is called as conditional operator. Here we have another one which is unconditional branching. So unconditional branching means without any condition the program execution will stop in that particular main process and it will jump to the another sequence of execution. Here goto is an example for that unconditional branching. Goto is used as an unconditional branching instruction. Goto is an unconditional branching instruction. It transfers the program control indicated by a label following the goto statement. So whatever the label assigned here, the program execution from main stops immediately and returns to the program execution where label is there. The label indicated by goto statement can be anywhere in the program before or after the goto label instruction, but it will jumps from the main program to the line where we have the label. And next, goto is generally used to come out of deeply nested loops in abnormal conditions or errors. So generally we have executed this as unconditional branching. If any abnormal conditions are occurred in the program and any errors are produced due to that abnormal conditions, then it will be skipped. Otherwise, it will be generally executing. And next, another one is loop control instructions. The loop control instructions are nothing but first one is while statement. So while statement is entry controlled loop statement. It is known as entry controlled loop statement. The expression is evaluated first, and if it is true, then the body of the loop will be entered and executed. So if the expression given in these brackets, while brackets, is evaluated first and if it is true, then only it enters into the body of the while loop. Otherwise, it will not enter into the body of the while loop. And the execution of the body of the while loop is repeated till the expression becomes false. Until unless the expression is true, the program execution will be in that while loop only. And next one is do while loop. The body of the loop is executed at least once. At the end of each execution of the body of the loop, the while condition is evaluated and if it is true, the loop is repeated. Else, the loop is terminated. This is the do while loop. For loop, here it is an entry control loop. It enters and executes the body of the loop only if the test for the condition is true. So here we need to give a test condition in the for loop. So in the for loop, first we have to initialize and we have to give a condition for testing and we need to update the variable. So if the test for this condition is true, then only it enters into the body of the loop and executes. Otherwise, it will not enter. The for loop contains a loop control variable, which may be initialized within the initialization part, and multiple variables can be initialized with comma operator. Here in the for loop, we can use this for loop for multiple variables. Next, exiting from loop, break, go to label. Here loops can be exited in two ways. Here in the above three cases, we have learned how to enter into the loop and how to execute the same program repeatedly for number of times. But here, how can we exit from that loop? So this is due to two cases. Here we have two cases. One is break, another one is go to label. So first one is normal exit, where loop is exited when the expression or test for the condition becomes false. So when the test given in that case is false, then it will automatically exited from that loop, which is known as break. And the second one is forced exit. So here it is normal exit, it is forced exit. The break and go to are used for forced exit. The break exists from the innermost loop in a deeply nested loop, whereas go to transfer the program flow to a defined label. Here the break can be used for moving out from the innermost loop. So whenever the condition is false, we are moving out from that loop. So for that case, we can use the break. Here that go to can transfer the program flow to the defined label. Next looping instruction is, so while, first we need to check the condition in the while loop, and next we will go for if condition. So certain situation demands the skipping of a portion of the loop for some conditions. The continue statement, here we need to remember the continue statement. So this continue statement is used inside the loop, will skip the rest of the portion following it and will transfer the program control to the beginning of the loop. So that means here we want to skip the rest of the portion to be not executed and we will move to the first beginning of the loop. So in that cases we will use the continue statement. Here do while with skipping. So here also we need to use the continue statement for skipping the total execution of the do while, and we have to skip some part of the program execution in the do while loop, and we have started from the beginning of the loop. Here this is the for loop with skipping and enters into the continue. So here in the for loop also, if we have placed the continue statement, it indicates that it stops the program execution from that part and it enters into the first statement of the for loop. So these are the topics we have discussed in the present session. The summary of the previous session: what are the keywords for embedded C language? So what are the data types to be used for embedded C language? The operators to be used in embedded C language. The conditional branching. So what are the different types of conditional branching cases are there? And what are different types of loops used in embedded C language? So these are the topics which are discussed in the present video session. Thank you.